Okay, Algebra 2, we have some notes to take on solving quadratics by completing the square. First, let's do a warm-up by solving this quadratic that is a perfect square trinomial. This part right here is a perfect square trinomial. That means that if I took 49 and I found two numbers that would multiply to get me 49, but would add to get me 14, it would be 7 and 7. Which means that this would factor to x plus 7 and x plus 7, okay? Which can be written as x plus 7 squared. And then, of course, we have the equals 4 there. Okay, so now we can go and finish solving this quadratic, finish finding the zeros by taking the square root of both sides. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this squared right here by taking the square root of both sides. Whatever I do to one side, I must do on the other. That leaves me with just x plus 7 on one side. And then we have plus or minus 2. Remember, anytime you take the square root in an equation, you have to put the plus or minus on there on the other side. Okay, now to get my x by itself, all I have to do is subtract 7 from both sides, and I get x equals, and I have plus or minus 2, so I have negative 7 plus 2. Or I have x equals negative 7 minus 2, okay? Negative 7 plus 2 is going to give me a negative 5, and negative 7 minus 2 is going to give me a negative 9. So my solution for number 1 is going to be the x values, negative 5 and negative 7, or excuse me, negative 9, okay? All right, give you a second to copy that down. And we got to move on. So pause if you need to. Right now, let's go down and take a look at the steps for completing the square. It says it is possible to take any quadratic equation, create a perfect square trinomial, and solve it in a similar way. This method is called completing the square. We know how to complete the square. We've done that. We just need to make sure that we are using these steps, which is a little different than completing the square, in order to use completing the square to find the solutions to the quadratic, okay? So rewriting it as ax squared plus bx equals c instead of plus c, we're going to put the c on the other side of the equal sign. You see here. Then we're going to divide both sides by the a value so that we have a 1x squared plus bx equals c. Then we're going to complete the square by taking half of b divided by 2, and then squaring it. Remember that from completing the square? Then we're going to factor the perfect square trinomial, and then we're going to use the square root method like we did above in order to find our solutions, okay? All right, let's take a look at some example problems. Let's take a look at number 3 here. We have x squared minus 18x plus 56. Okay, our first step said to rewrite it as ax squared plus bx equals c. So let's do that. Let's take the 56 and move it to the other side, algebraically, of course. So minus 56 from both sides. That's going to give me x squared minus 18x. And then we'll put our plus something there, equals negative 56. And then whatever you do on one side, we must do on the other. So we're going to put a plus something there. Now, when we were solving when we were completing the square earlier in this chapter, we did plus something minus something, but we didn't have an equal sign. Now that we have an equal sign, we need to remember that whatever we do on one side, we have to do on the other, okay? So it's just a little bit different. All right, so let's complete this perfect square trinomial by taking my b value, which is negative 18. So negative 18 divided by 2, that's going to give me a negative 9, and I'm going to square that, which gives me an 81. I'm going to add 81 on this side, and remember, whatever I do on the left side, I must also do on the right. So add 81 on that side as well. Okay, now, if we remember correctly, this is a perfect square trinomial, and it will factor to x minus 9 times x minus 9, which can be written as x minus 9 squared. Okay. And then we have negative 56 plus 81, and that's going to give me a 25. Now we can just solve by taking the square root of both sides. So let's do that. We're going to take the square root of the left. That'll get rid of my squared, and take the square root of the right. That will leave me with x minus 9 on the left equals plus or minus, because we took the square root in an equation, 5. Now I can take this x minus 9 and add 9 to both sides. And that's going to give me x equals 9 plus 5, and x equals 9 minus 5. Remember, we're looking for two solutions. So 9 plus 5 is going to give me 14, and 9 minus 5 is going to give me 4. So my solution set is going to be x equals 14 and 4. And remember, the solution set is simply where this equation, this quadratic, will cross the x-axis. Okay? Go ahead and pause if you need to copy this down, and we'll be moving on. All right, let's move on and look at number 5. Number 5, it's already in the form we need it to be in. Actually, let's skip number 5. Let's take a look at number 7. Okay. So taking a look at number 7, it's not in the form we need it to be in. So let's go ahead and move the 21 to the other side. So let's add 21. That's going to give me x squared plus 16x plus something. Remember, when we complete the square, we add something, equals negative 5 plus 21 is 16. And then whatever we do on the left side, we must do on the right. So we're going to add on the right as well. Taking our b value, which is 16, dividing it by 2, and then we'll square that. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 8 squared is going to give me 64. Whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other. Okay, this part right here is a perfect squared trinomial. It is going to factor to x plus my b value squared, which is 8, times x plus 8, which is the same thing as x plus 8 squared, equals 16 plus 64 gives me 80. Okay? Now I'm ready to solve by taking the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. That gets rid of my square here. And whatever I do on the left, I must do on the right. That leaves me with just x plus 8 on the left, and then plus or minus the square root of 80 on the right. Okay, so I should simplify this plus or minus 80. So what is the largest perfect square that divides evenly into 80? It is 16. And 16 times 5 will give me that 80 that I have there. So the square root of 16 is 4. So what I really have is x plus 8 equals plus or minus 4 square root of 5. So we got to remember, if we can simplify those square roots, we should do so. Okay. Now I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides, and that leaves me with x equals negative 8 plus or minus 4 square root of 5. And because we can't really combine that 8 and that 4 square root of 5, we can go ahead and leave our solution like this. But what we really have is x equals negative 8 plus 4 square root of 5, and x equals negative 8 minus 4 square root of 5. That's what this means right there. Okay. And let's take a look at the number 8. So let me clear this, and then let's take a look at number 8, because we do have to divide. We have an a value that we have to take care of there. So let's get rid of that guy. All right, take a minute and pause this if you need to. Okay, let's clear it. And let's take a look Let's move this over here so we get more room to do number 8. All right, here we go. So it is already in the ax squared plus bx equals c form, but our a value, if you see here, is not a 1. So we do need to divide everything by a 3. And even if you get a fraction or a decimal on this side, we still need to do that, okay? We want to get that a value to be a 1. That's going to give us x squared minus 10x. It should be a minus there, not a dash. Erase that. Minus plus something, let's go ahead and start the process of completing the square here, equals 69 divided by 3 gives me 23. And then we'll also add that something on the right side as well. Whatever we do on the left, we must also do on the right, which again is a little bit different than what we did when we were just completing the square. Okay, so let's take our b value, which is negative 10, and we're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. Negative 10 divided by 2 is going to be negative 5. And then negative 5 squared is 25. So we're going to add 25 on both the left and the right. This is now a perfect squared trinomial, which will factor to x minus 5. There's a reason why I write this over here. Squared. And then 23 plus 25 is going to give me 48. Now I can solve by taking the square root on both sides. So take the square root of the left, take the square root of the right. On the left side, that leaves me with just x minus 5 equals, and then it's going to be plus or minus. But let's go ahead and simplify that 48. I do believe there is a perfect square that divides evenly into 48. And that is going to be the square root of 16 times the square root of 3. Okay, the square root of 16 becomes a 4. And then we have the leftover square root of 3. Oops, this should be a 5 right here, my bad. Erase that, make it a 5. Okay, so now we're going to finish this up by simply adding 5 to both sides. And that gets me x equals 5 plus or minus 4 square root of 3. Okay, and again, you can leave it like that because we can't combine the 5 and the 4 square root of 3. It's just going to give us a bunch of decimals. So that's our simplified perfect version there. Okay. I think that's it. I'm going to have you guys do the evens and then also do 9 as well to get you some good practice here. Okay. So good luck. If you need to watch this again, let me know. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thanks.